My grandfather, Peter Folger, was amongst the first English settlers on the island of Nantucket. That is where my mother was born. Mr. Folger, whom I never met, he died before I was born. Mr. Folger was a preacher of the gospel, a schoolmaster, and undertook to spread the Christian religion amongst the native Indians of that island. To this end, he mastered their language and became a great friend to them. And I think this has been the best model for those who have wished to follow in a similar example. It has not always been the case. I heard a curious tale, which is not only shows the folly of some missionaries in not understanding the Indians, but also something of the Indians' manner of doing things. It seems that a certain Swedish missionary went to the Susquehanna Indians in order to convey to them the glorious gospel. The Indians all assembled to hear him, and I presume through the benefit of an interpreter, he began by relating to them the story of the creation of the world by God Almighty, of Adam and Eve and man's fall, of the arrival of Christ, his sufferings and resurrection, the redemption of mankind, and carried the entire gospel tale all the way up to the last day of judgment. Now, whilst he delivered this very long address, the Indians sat silent and attentive, showing every sign of approbation, nodding their heads, and showing that they were listening and taking it all in, so that he finished very happy with himself, thinking that he had perhaps made an entire tribe of converts. But he did not understand, as they say, the Indian ways. And when he was done, one of the elders of the tribe stood up to speak to him, and he said, "Sir, we are very grateful to you that you have come all this way to tell us these marvelous stories, the like of which we have never heard before. And we appreciate the tales you have told of your grandfathers, that you have learned at your mother's knee. And in return, allow me to tell you something of our past also. There was a time when we lived entirely by the hunt. And life was much harder than it is at present. But one day, two of our hunters were in the woods, and they had just killed a deer, and they were carrying it back to their people, when they beheld a beautiful maiden on a cloud far above them, descending from the heavens to a hilltop. They thought this was quite remarkable, and so they hurried to the spot and beheld this woman seated on the ground. They prostrated themselves before her. They offered her of their hunt and offered her the finest parts of the deer, and they shared a meal with her there on that hilltop. And when they were done, this heavenly maiden spoke to them and said, "You have been kind to me, you have received me hospitably, and I would do something in return for you. Return to this spot a year hence, and you will find things much to your advantage." And with that, she ascended again into the heavens. Well, the hunters were, of course, astonished by all of these events. And the following year, they did as she had commanded and returned to that spot. And behold, on the very spot where she sat, where her left hand had touched the ground, there grew beans. And where her right hand had touched the ground, there grew corn. And where her backside sat upon the ground, there grew tobacco. And these three plants, cultivated by our people, have been of great benefit and sustenance to us in all the generations since. Well, the missionary was very angry to hear this. And he said to them, I have come all this way to relate to you the most important things, the greatest truths you shall ever hear in your lives. And what do? You turn and tell me absurd fables and nonsense, rather than inquiring further knowledge of the gospel. All this nonsense of maidens coming from the clouds and corn and beans, this is all absurdity. I have told you the real truth. Well, at this, the Indians were very distressed. And the old chief said, Sir, we have received you with every hospitality we know. We have gathered at your behest. We have listened attentively to all you have said. And being persons who were taught at our mother's knee to have good manners, we have not questioned, doubted, or contradicted anything that you told us, but we have believed you as you wished us to believe you. But it seems that you were not brought up so well. You were not taught good manners. And when we return the favor in kind and tell you some of our stories, you berate us in our own house. You contradict us to our faces. And under these circumstances, we do not wish to see anything more of you. And so off the missionary was sent. For this is the way of the Indians in many instances. They consider it a great rudeness to disagree with a person to his face, to contradict him. It is only good manners to believe what you are told until you have reason to do otherwise. But this man who might have accomplished something failed utterly, owing to his lack of good manners.